Virginia is taking on the alarming rise of anti-Semitism. The Commonwealth is the first state to create a task force to investigate these hate crimes and to educate the public on how to prevent them.
Well, CBN's Burke sat down with Virginia's Attorney General to learn more about what the state is doing to protect the Jewish community.
The Jewish community faces a greater rise in hate than any other religious group in the U.S. With that in mind, officials here in Virginia's capital are taking the lead in growing efforts to fight anti-Semitism.
If you come in and you decide to commit acts of violence or violate anyone's civil rights, you're going to be hearing from the Office of the Attorney General in Virginia very shortly.
Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares announced the creation of a new task force to monitor and combat anti-Semitism.
We want the left hand to know what the right hand is doing. So it's both monitoring, it's informing, and we have a civil rights division here in the AG's office, if need be, bringing cases as well. So I think that's a critical component, is bringing those both in the law enforcement, the security, the education background on one page. They can get a clear picture of the depths of the problem that we're seeing right now in Virginia, and we're obviously seeing this nationally as well.
A 2021 report by the Anti-Defamation League found that anti-Semitic incidents, including assaults, harassment, and vandalism, hit an all-time high. Virginia experienced a 70% increase in the hate crime.
I think we're still dealing with the aftershocks of what happened in Charlottesville in 2017, where you saw the anti-Semitic bigots walking through town, shouting anti-Semitic slurs. And I think, candidly, getting through COVID, we're at this inflection point in America where 50% of Americans don't even know the name of their neighbor.
Samuel Asher, executive director of the Virginia Holocaust Museum, sees ignorance as one of the main factors behind many incidents.
There was a study a couple of years ago by the Schoen Foundation, and it found that if you had been to a Holocaust museum, if you studied about the Holocaust, you were far less likely to be involved in hate groups, white supremacist groups, etc. They also found the reverse. If you had no understanding of the Holocaust, then you are possibly going to be recruited by white supremacists, KKK, etc.
Asher and his staff regularly bring in teachers from all over the state and provide tools to help them accurately teach students about Hitler's final solution aimed at eradicating the Jewish people. With education as a top priority of the new anti-Semitism task force, the museum will also be hosting members of Virginia law enforcement.
The best way to fight bad information is with good information. So a lot of it's educating. A lot of it's making sure our state police officers go and they spend the day when they're at the police academy going to the Holocaust Museum, because so many young police officers, they're just not familiar with it. And maybe that's an indictment on our history standards in our public schools.
A 50-state survey on Holocaust knowledge among millennials and Gen Z found that 63% didn't know the Holocaust led to the murder of 6 million Jews. 48% couldn't name a single concentration camp.
My family lost 75 members. They came from Plock, Poland, which is a little town outside of Warsaw, and they were sent to the camps. And they're not here now. So I can testify, they're not here. And they're not here because they were killed in the Germans' mechanized killing machine. And we cannot ever let that happen again.
Members of this task force are still being chosen, but Miyares tells me he's seeking a mix of public officials and private citizens. Burke, CBN News, Richmond, Virginia.
Well, that's a wonderful report, and I congratulate our Attorney General. I hope this is replicated throughout the United States and throughout the world. When you see the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe and the United States, the so-called educated Democrat West, the modern, sophisticated nation states, when you see this kind of activity, it just puts just such deep sorrow in my heart. I go to church across the street from a synagogue. As I'm going to church, I notice the security measures they've had to adopt over the past few years. I'm closely allied with our local Jewish community center, and when you visit them and see the same thing, they've had to hire additional security. They have to spend their scarce resources in order to protect themselves. You look at the FBI database and the alarming rise of attacks against synagogues, against Jews, these hate crimes. we need to get the word out. Never again, never again. I agree with the rabbis. This is a spiritual force. We need to not just do what is necessary physically to protect the synagogues, the Jewish community centers, people. We've got to do more than that. We've got to educate people on the Holocaust and come into agreement. No, never again, not on our watch. This isn't going to happen. And then we need to pray, because this is a spiritual force. It's dependent on our prayers to stop.